Malik's tall silhouette emerged from the shadows, his presence like a storm that stopped her breath. He stepped closer, the dying light dancing off his deep brown complexion, where every freckle and line told stories of struggles and triumphs. Cleo despised how her heart leaped. "You shouldn't be here." "Is that what you truly want?" Malik questioned, an eyebrow raising in defiance. He leaned against the railing beside her, the intimacy of the moment settling like a thick fog. "You seem to want to escape more than just this garden." With the steady air shifted between them, she could sense the guarded quality within him, the unspoken burdens glimmering in his eyes. "I want the truth, Malik." She pushed out the words as if expelling a treacherous venom. "You saw the men today in the meeting, those dark figures. What is this alliance?" His jaw tightened, and he avoided her gaze, instead staring into the garden, where night's cool fingers began to steal the last vestiges of sunlight. "I cannot explain everything right now, Cleo, but there are dangers, real ones, that you are not prepared for." The way he said her name, rich and warm, made her heart race, even in her turmoil. "I've dealt with dangers my entire life, Malik. This engagement," she scoffed, her laughter sharp as glass. "Wasn't it the very essence of deceit?" But her hand trembled on the railing, her uncertainty wrestling with a burgeoning desire for this man before her. He was a conundrum, a troublesome blend of protector and enigma. His gaze bore into her, filled with tumultuous energy that made her pulse quicken. "This is more than a game, Cleo. You need to trust me." He took a step closer, their proximity igniting a surprising warmth that radiated through the air. "I can't just trust you," she retorted, her voice breaking under the weight of her emotions. "Not without knowing what this alliance means. Then you should prepare for the worst." Malik's voice dropped to a whisper, still laced with urgency. His breath brushed against her, sending a shiver dancing down her spine. "Those men do not play fair, and neither do I." "Fair," Cleo echoed incredulously. "You know nothing of fair, Malik. Your world spins on a different axis." Her resolve softened as she searched his eyes, darting between heated frustration and the flickering embers of something deeper, something dangerous. "I might only have dark secrets, but I can shield you from their reach, Cleo." His intense gaze locked with hers, a challenge, a promise wrapped in the weight of his solemnity. Everything shimmered between them, tension thick and real as the impending storm that brewed behind the tranquil facade of her reality. "Do you promise?" Cleo dared to ask, tasting vulnerability on her tongue, mingling with the scent of night-blooming jasmine wafting gently as a backdrop to their conversation. "Promise and protect," he murmured, passion lacing every syllable, yet the fear of truth lingered just beside. "Then you must tell me everything," she insisted, her pulse racing as the night wrapped around them like a cloak, hiding both their ghosts amidst the growing shadows. "A promise is heavier than you know." Malik stepped back, balancing the weight of that proposition against the thin line dividing ally and adversary. "And yet, I am nothing if not resilient," she countered softly, holding the gaze of her unexpected ally, the complexities of their budding connection, twisting and tightening like vines around a trellis. Scene 12. A dangerous lure. A faint drizzle danced against the cobblestones of the narrow street, sending delicate ripples through puddles that reflected the flickering gas lamps glowing above. Malik Orpheus tucked a loose strand of hair behind Cleo Seke's ear as they stood outside a dimly lit tavern. The heavy scent of spiced rum and tobacco wafted through the air, mixing with the earthy aromas of rain-soaked mud. Cleo hesitated, her heart racing, not from fear but from the thrilling uncertainty of what lay ahead. "Are you sure about this?" Cleo asked, her voice barely above a whisper, the edge of her question sharpened by the trepidation curling in her gut. Malik's dark eyes softened, tinged with an intensity that both soothed and unsettled her. "This is where knowledge sleeps. I promise it can't hurt more than the truths you already carry." He pushed open the creaky door, inviting her into the raucous warmth of the tavern. Cleo's senses were consumed with color, the red of plush seating, the gold-hued sparkle of a chandelier swaying above, and the laughter of strangers filling the space like buoyant spirits. She took a steadying breath, scenting the mingling aromas of roasted meat and baked bread, grounding herself in the present. As they walked deeper into the tavern, the air buzzed with the chatter of familiar faces, limbs relaxed around mugs that glimmered with liquid warmth. It was another world, one she had never allowed herself to explore, clinging instead to the unyielding rules of her societal life. Malik, however, moved with a confidence that made the chaos seem inviting, a magnetic force that pulled her closer even as their surroundings grew more intimidating. "Gentlemen," Malik called, raising a hand to a rowdy group seated in the corner. They flashed toothy grins, their faces rugged but welcoming. Malik turned to Cleo, his expression an unreadable mix of mischief and seriousness. "You're more than just our guests. Tonight, you are part of the Orpheus legacy." "Legacy?" Cleo echoed, skepticism creeping back into her tone. "Is that what you call it? A legacy of crime?" "Crime is a harsh word," Malik countered, his voice low but firm. "It suggests a moral judgment that doesn't belong in this place. It's survival." Their conversation simmered beneath the din, but scraps of tension knotted between them, harmonizing with the lively music thrumming in the background. Cleo crossed her arms, unwilling to let her guard down, feeling the weight of his unspoken truths crash against her heart. "Survival? Your family thrives in an underworld, Malik. I can't pretend that's honorable." The laughter around them faded as her boldness caught the attention of the room. Eyes pivoted toward her, intrigued by the challenge she posed. Malik stepped closer, leaning in just enough to send a shiver skittering down her spine. The flicker of the nearby candle illuminated the contours of his face, infusing their banter with palpable tension. "You think this is easy for me, Cleo?" he asked, his breath a warmth against her cheek. "Every choice I make carries consequences. Yet here I am, revealing my truth when all I want is to shield you from the darkness." "I don't need your protection," she shot back, words brimming with the battle within. Her heart raced, not just in anger, but in that dangerous, electrifying pull toward him. "What if I told you?" Malik paused, his voice dropping to an intimate murmur that by staying in your gilded cage, you're anchoring yourself to your late fiancé's ghost. A hush fell between them, the air thick with the weight of his accusation. Cleo's heart sank, gripped by the truth of his words. "You don't know what you're saying," Cleo retorted, quaking under the layers of his scrutiny. "You're right, I don't," Malik admitted, his tone softening, the tension crackling like a spark on the verge of ignition. "But I do know this. Walking outside those walls can be the first step toward freeing yourself." For a moment, they stood enveloped in silence, the hum of the tavern fading away. Cleo's breath hitched in her throat, their unguarded vulnerability knotting the space around them. The heat radiating from his body grounded her, tempted her to take a step they hadn't yet dared. "What if I don't want to be free?" she whispered, the fear in her voice melding with barely contained passion. "You want freedom more than you know," Malik replied, his intensity unwavering. The echo of their words hung in the air, laden with uncharted possibilities. Cleo searched his gaze, a mixture of hope and fear swirling like the storm outside, igniting an undeniable flame with each lingering second that passed. With the world around them teetering on the edge of chaos, could they find to emerge together? Scene 13. Truth revealed. As dusk settled like a heavy velvet drape over Hartfield Manor, shadows danced through the grand hall. Cleo Seke stared out the window, watching raindrops cascade down the glass, tracing erratic paths reminiscent of her own turbulent thoughts. The fading light mirrored her emotions, ensnared in a storm of uncertainty. She tucked a loose curl behind her ear, the familiar gesture of futile attempt to regain control. The door creaked open, and Malik Orpheus stepped into the dim light, his tall figure framed by the entrance's ornate archway. Raindrops glistened on his coat, reflecting the last rays of day like secrets waiting to be unveiled. "You shouldn't be out here alone, Cleo," he said, his voice low, stirring the air between them. She turned, sharp and deliberate. "And yet, here we are. You know our connection isn't just coincidence, Malik." Her heart raced, amplifying the weight of her words. "My mother's ties to your family, it's more than you've led me to believe." Malik's expression shifted, a flicker of vulnerability crossing his handsome features. He stepped further into the room, shutting the door with an unsettling finality. "It's complicated," he replied, his tone cautious, as if each word were a mine in a field of secrets. Cleo took a step toward him, the distance between them charged with unsaid confessions. The faint aroma of rain-soaked earth and musk filled the room, making her heart thump harder against her ribcage. The palpable tension was magnetic, drawing them closer despite the abyss of betrayal gaping between their lives. "Complicated," she echoed, her voice tinged with incredulity. "Your family was involved in my mother's passing, Malik, and you pretend like it's just another tragedy." He closed his eyes briefly, his hands clenched at his sides. "I didn't want to burden you with this. I thought." His voice faltered as he opened his eyes, anguish pooling in their depths. "I thought it would protect you." "Protect me?" She scoffed, the sarcasm biting at the exposed heart of their relationship. "How can you stand there and claim to know what's best for me? I deserve the truth, even if it shatters everything." As the rain intensified, the sound drummed against the windows, echoing the turmoil swirling inside the manor. Malik stepped forward, closing the distance, his gaze piercing her armor. "Cleo," he said, voice softening, "there are shadows in my family's legacy. Your mother, she was a part of it, but not like you think. She was brave, sought a way out." "It's easy to paint her as a victim, isn't it?" Cleo challenged, her heart fluttering at the sincerity in his eyes. "What if she was naive, or worse, manipulated by your family?" Malik's brow furrowed, and as he opened his mouth to respond, Cleo noticed the way his jaw clenched, his internal war laid bare. For a moment, the world outside faded away, the only reality existing between them, fraught and combustible. It was the recklessness of a candle's flame in a tempest. "Cleo, he started, but his words were swallowed by an overwhelming wave of vulnerability. Then, without thought, instinct drove her closer, and she reached out, taking a step first into the fire. "Tell me then, Malik, why do I feel this pull toward you if you're part of the darkness I'm trying to escape?" Her voice softened, breath hitching in anticipation. In that heartbeat of suspended time, Malik hesitated, his eyes searching hers for a tether in the chaos. And with the storm raging outside, he finally surged forward, capturing her in a fierce embrace that weaved together longing and despair. Their lips met, and the world around them blurred, a symphony of sensations flooding every pore. The taste of rain lingered on the air, mixing with the warmth of his breath, igniting a fire that melted away insecurities. The kiss was an unraveling, a passion layered with grief and yearning, as the horror of unspoken truths washed away in a tide of connection. Cleo felt the walls imprisoning her heart crumble, replaced by the sense of safety she had long sought. But just as quickly, she pulled back, breathlessly searching his eyes for clarity. "I need to know the truth, Malik," she whispered, her resolve shaking but unwavering. "Then we shall uncover it together," he vowed, determination igniting behind his haunting gaze. "But first, we must survive what's coming." The storm raged beyond the walls, mirroring the tumult of their entwined destinies, hinting at the shadows lurking in the corners of their lives, threatening to reach out and snatch that burgeoning truth from their grasp. Scene 14, Chaos Brews. The late afternoon sun dipped towards the horizon, casting elongated shadows across the cobblestone streets of London. Cleo Seke stood at the ornate window of the lavish drawing room, the chill of the evening air brushing against her skin, refreshing yet bitter. She watched as horse-drawn carriages jostled through the bustling thoroughfare, their drivers shouting above the clatter, but the sound was a distant murmur, drowned by the riot of her thoughts. Malik Orpheus's laughter echoed in her mind, warm, disarming, yet tinged with something darker, something just out of reach. It was that same laugh that had drawn her into his orbit, even as shadows from her engagement loomed ever larger and darker. "Cleo?" Malik's voice sliced through her reverie, smooth as silk, but edged with an undertone that made her heart race. She turned to him, his figure silhouetted against the soft candlelight, his presence commanding yet strangely vulnerable. "You're lost in contemplation again? What is it this time? The future of our world or the state of your engagement?" She turned away, attempting to mask her emotions behind a facade of indifference. "Aren't they one and the same?" she replied sharply, closing her hands into fists to hide their tremor. "Each decision feels like a step into a darker abyss. I cannot breathe." Malik stepped forward with purpose, the warmth of his body a stark contrast to the cool, opulent space they occupied. "Cleo," he said, his voice dropping to a low, earnest whisper, "you must realize that life doesn't wait for you to find your footing. It's constantly moving. Look at us now. We're at the precipice. The rush of his words sent a thrill through her, something sweetly intoxicating, yet painfully reality-checking. And what do you propose I do, Malik? Shatter my world? Dance my way into chaos like you? His eyes darkened momentarily, the mask of levity slipping. I don't want chaos for you. I want clarity. But it seems I'm the only one knocking at your door, while you remain locked inside, waiting for your Prince Charming. Cleo's breath caught, stunned by the duality of his accusation and the pulse of something deeper simmering between them. She clenched her jaw, swallowing the retort that rose like bile in her throat. You speak of doors, yet you're the one who keeps dragging me through the darkness. Malik's expression transformed in an instant, pain threading into the corners of his charming facade. You think I don't want to protect you? You're looking at the surface, Cleo. There are truths hidden deeper. I lost someone I cared about once. Losing you too is not an option. An echo of silence enveloped them, the air between them thickening with raw emotion. She dared to meet his gaze, the intensity pulling her down like quicksand. And what does that mean for us? I am engaged, Malik. My path is clear, she said, though every word felt heavier than the last, the weight of it threatening to pull her under. Your engagement is a fog that cloaks your vision. It stifles you. Look at yourself. His voice rose, uncharacteristically fierce, reverberating off the lavish walls. How can you succumb to a life of suffocation? You deserve freedom. Freedom, she echoed incredulously, her own frustration flaring to life. You don't know what it is to be trapped by expectation, by the sins of your family, the very same sins that bind the souls of those around you. Malik stepped so close she could feel the uneven crackle of tension, almost tasting the smoke of conflict. I stand by you, only asking you to see the choices in front of you. Before she could respond, a sudden commotion erupted in the streets below, a shout, a gunshot echoing through the still evening, igniting a wave of panic that rippled into the drawing room. Cleo instinctively stepped back, heart racing. Stay here, he ordered, his eyes darkening into something dangerous. I'll see what's happening. No, she grabbed his arm, desperation rising to meet the urgency in his stance. You can't just rush into. No time, Malik bit out sharply, then softened, his fingers brushing against her shoulder with a warmth that sent shivers down her spine. I won't let you be part of this world unless you wish to be. They stood frozen in that breathless moment, chaos brewing in the air, a storm waiting to unleash itself. Cleo's heart thundered, torn between the reality of her suffocating engagement and the intoxicating presence of Malik, the man who ignited something within her that fought to break free. What if I want you to save me? She breathed, both a plea and a revelation that hung dangerously between them. Then let me, he replied, sincerity lighting his dark eyes. With a quick turn, they dashed toward the door, hand in hand, the chaos of the outside world beckoning them forth into an uncertain future. Scene 15. The Prince's Threat. The rain drummed on the cobblestone streets of Ravenshire, creating a melancholic symphony that echoed Cleo Seke's tumultuous heart. The distant glow of gas lamps flickered against the fast-gathering dusk, casting distorted shadows that seemed to claw at her heels as she approached Whitmore's residence. With each step, the taste of iron mingled with the cold wetness on her skin, a reminder of the confrontation that awaited. Cleo's breath quickened, a tempest of fear and indignation swirling in her chest. The decorative iron gate loomed before her like a sentinel, its ornate filigree wrought with intricate designs that betrayed a facade of nobility, underlining the darkness lurking within. The lush gardens, once inviting, now felt oppressive, with the scent of damp earth and crumbling petals used as a guise for hidden secrets and lies. With a steadying breath, she pushed open the heavy wooden door. Inside, warm light poured from sconces, yet the air carried an undercurrent of coldness, a promise of conflict simmering just beneath the surface. Whitmore's study was dim, filled with leather-bound tomes and faintly glowing embers in the hearth. But the atmosphere felt heavy with unspoken truths. The moment she crossed the threshold, Cleo could sense him, the arrogant figure sulking behind his desk, every muscle coiled as tightly as the fraying cords of tension between them. To what do I owe the pleasure, Cleo? Whitmore's voice dripped with condescension, his posture languid, every glance almost dismissive as he gestured towards an empty chair that crowded the space between them. "Let's dispense with the pleasantries, Whitmore," Cleo began, her voice steady despite the quaking in her gut. "I know about your dealings with Blackmore." At the mention of the name, Whitmore's demeanor shifted. The air crackled with electricity. His eyes narrowed, and she noticed the subtle tightening of his jaw, revealing the strain of keeping his true nature hidden. "Blackmore? Is that what this visit is about?" There was almost a mocking lilt in his tone, a veneer of confidence barely veiling the anger beneath. "Don't play coy with me," Cleo retorted, her fingers curling into fists at her sides. "You're entangled in something dangerous. This isn't just a way to enhance your estate's standing, is it?" A cold laugh escaped him, cutting through her resolve like ice. "Cleo, you should be more concerned with your own position in this mess. Marrying into the Whitmore family means expected sacrifices." The weight of his words hung in the air, suffocating any lightness in the room. Cleo felt her heart race as memories flooded back. The fateful night when Malik had revealed Whitmore's dark secrets, the way those truths carved a chasm between them. She wasn't fooled by the man seated before her. This was a game for him, stakes high, and she was merely a pawn. "Threats won't sway me," she said, forcing her voice to remain grounded. "I know your past, Whitmore. I refuse to play along with your games any longer." With a predatory grace, he leaned forward, the corner of his mouth curving into a sly smile. "Oh, my dear Cleo, you misunderstand. This isn't merely a threat, it's an opportunity." His eyes glinted with mischief laced with menace. "You stand on the precipice of a reality far grimmer than you comprehend. Decline my proposal, and I assure you, repercussions follow." Dread slithered along Cleo's spine, igniting a fight-or-flight response she had never experienced before. Her mind flickered to Malik, the conflicted protector torn between family honor and desire. She willed her thoughts away from him, focusing instead on asserting her strength. "And you think I would ever align myself with a man like you? You're nothing but a shadow, Whitmore." He straightened, and in the faint light she saw the cold rage in his eyes, a flicker of the predator beneath his tailored exterior. "You think you can just walk away? My reputation, Cleo, is a fortress, strong and unyielding, so choose wisely. You have much to lose should you choose to cross me." Cleo's pulse quickened, unease racing in tandem with her indignation. "You'll never control me, Whitmore. I refuse to manipulate or be manipulated. This is my life we're discussing. I warned you about the consequences, didn't I?" His tone dripped with danger. "Find yourself on the wrong side of this story, and trust, sweetheart, you'll wish you had listened." Just then, a shimmering spark ignited in her, a fire fueled by righteousness. While fear crawled across her skin, it intertwined with an incandescent defiance. "And do remember, Prince," she said, her voice cool and unwavering, "the day you try to silence my voice is the day I fight back with everything I am." The two souls locked in a taut standoff, with a storm raging within and outside as the clouds unleashed a torrent of rain, a deluge of uncertainty beginning to swallow Ravenshire whole. Scene 16, at the crossing. The shadows of the twilight sky cloaked the small cobbled street in a deep blue hue, while the cool air whipped through Cleo's hair, bringing with it the scent of rain-soaked earth, a stark contrast to the tension thickening between her and Malik. "Do you ever wonder," Cleo asked, her voice steady yet edged with lingering fear, "if trust is just a fairy tale we tell ourselves to make betrayal easier to swallow?" Malik's gaze pierced through the darkening sky, his expression contemplative. "Maybe it's not the trust we need to question, but our choice of whom to trust." He leaned against the stone wall of the old terrace home, shadows dancing across his sharp features as street lamps flickered to life nearby. His movement was fluid, almost feline, each motion measured and intentional. And what if that choice is flawed? Cleo's heart raced as the vulnerability washed over her like the cool breeze. The rattle of leaves above seemed to answer her unspoken fears, whispering the darker truths neither of them wanted to acknowledge. "We've all got secrets," Malik replied, his tone low, the undertone of mystery wrapping around them like a shroud. "Some heavier than others." Cleo felt a rush, a simultaneous surge of fear and exhilaration, the air around them charged, the palpable tension hanging heavy like the gathering storm clouds. Yet in this confined bubble, she glimpsed the man behind Malik's charming facade, raw, resolute, yearning for connection despite the walls he built. "It's what we choose to do with those secrets that defines us," he added, stepping closer, their bodies nearly brushing against one another in the narrowness of the alleyway. Laughter and music from the nearby taverns spilled into their moment, creating a symphony of life just beyond their secluded interaction. "Isn't that what makes it so perilous?" Cleo tilted her head, locking eyes with him, the intensity in her stare almost challenging. "The uncertainty?" Malik's gaze softened, the spark of something more tender igniting as he took another step closer, the space between them disappearing. "And yet, here we are, caught tangled in these threads we can't seem to unravel." And just like that, with the flickering light casting golden highlights in his dark eyes, Cleo's resolve faltered. She was drawn in, the pull of his presence anchoring her amidst the storm of uncertainty swirling within. Around them, the distant clash of thunder echoed, foretelling the inevitable change hovering over their futures. Cleo began, the warmth from his body seeping into her skin, compelling her to share the fears she had buried deep within. But before she could voice her doubts, thunder rolled louder, as if urging them to either flee or embrace the tempest. Her pulse quickened, every instinct demanding her to pull back, yet the gravity of Malik's aura held her rooted. "Just a moment," he whispered, his voice a rich timbre against the cold night air. "Before we lose ourselves in the chaos outside, can we allow ourselves this?" His gaze flickered to her lips, the question hanging between them heavy with potential. Cleo's breath caught in her throat, and her heart answered his silent invitation with a resounding yes. Drowning in the electric rush spiraling through her. With a gentle yet unmistakable shift, Malik closed the distance. The world fell away as his lips met hers, igniting a fire that cascaded through every nerve ending. The kiss was tender, yet charged, a mingling of their growing affection and the raw vulnerability of their circumstances. The volatile air wrapped them in warmth amid the sudden gust of wind that tousled their hair. Sweet and urgent, the kiss deepened, feeling both like a promise and a plea for understanding amidst anguish. Moments stretched, the soothing cadence of raindrops began to fall, pattering softly on cobblestones, mirroring the rhythm of their embrace. As they finally pulled away, breathless and wide-eyed, the world returned, yet nothing was the same. Cleo's thoughts raced, swirling like the storm that threatened overhead. "Now we're truly tangled," Malik murmured, a smirk playing at the corners of his mouth, though the shadows in his gaze hinted at deeper struggles. "What comes next?" Cleo asked, her heart pounding, aware that the stakes were dangerously high. He leaned in, a mischievous glint in his eye. "Whatever it takes to untangle this mess, starting with you trusting me." And in that moment, as raindrops cascaded from above, she felt a glimmer of something she had never imagined in a world entwined with Shadow's hope. Scene 17, Twilight Confessions. Under a velvet sky embroidered with stars, a tranquil moment settled over the garden, fragrant with the scent of blooming jasmine and damp earth. The air shimmered with the warmth of summer, but a quiet tension crackled just beneath the surface. Cleo stood near the edge of the wrought iron railing, her gaze lost in the spirals of the night. She'd been debating whether she dared to voice her innermost fears aloud or let them swirl silently within her turmoil. Malik had been unusually quiet beside her, a shadow with depth, watching not just the stars but her. "What do you think your parents would say if they knew you'd stepped away from everything?" Cleo asked, her voice barely above a whisper, breaking the stillness. The candor in her question startled even her. Malik turned, his amber eyes reflecting the starlight. "More than half of them would be celebrating my soul's return," he replied, a half-smile escaping his lips, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. "The other half would wonder how far I've fallen." A pause lingered in the air, heavy with words left unspoken. Cleo couldn't help but wonder what burdens weighed on him, what dark secrets he harbored that had molded him into this brooding figure at her side. "Life can be such a labor, can't it? Sifting through expectations, grasping for dreams," she remarked, her tone a blend of melancholy and mirth. She leaned slightly against the railing, the cool metal grounding her amidst the emotional tempest. "Sometimes you find you've built a house of cards," he replied, stepping closer, the sound of his leather shoes muted on the stone path. Just a gust of wind. Any moment, it could all come crashing down. Cleo found herself entranced, the distance between them diminishing as the air thickened with unacknowledged tension. "Then why stay in the game?" she asked, her heart racing, not just with fear, but exhilaration. "Because some cards are worth the risk," Malik's gaze intensified. His voice lowered. "Because sometimes you have to play to win." The profound weight of his words hung between them, a bridge stretching into the unknown. She felt her breath hitch, unsure whether she wanted to leap into the space of uncertainty or cling to her steady despair. "You talk about it like it's a game," Cleo said, her voice softer now, trembling on the edge of defiance. "But for me, it feels so much heavier, more like chains I can't quite break." For a long moment, he simply stared, his silence wrapping around them like a thick cloak. Then softly, he said, "I dare you to let them fall." The challenge in his eyes sparked something in her soul. The defensiveness she wore like armor trembled, and a visceral yearning broke through the cracks. The night felt alive around them. The serenade of cicadas, the distant rustle of leaves, and the cool breeze caressing their skin created an atmosphere so charged that a mere breath could shatter it. Suddenly, he reached out, brushing a finger along her arm. The touch was electric, igniting a rush of heat that tingled in her veins. "Cleo, what if the worst has already happened? What if we just what?" she pressed, her pulse quickening as she leaned slightly into him, daring him to continue. He closed the distance between them, his breath warm on her face. "What if we simply dared to be free?" In that instant, the world fell away. A single heartbeat echoed louder than the distant laughter of partygoers inside the estate. Her thoughts swirled in chaos, frightened yet yearning. The storm of emotions broke the dam she had carefully built, letting vulnerability dance under the moonlight. "Malik," she whispered, that one word embodying her longing and the conflict of their worlds. And then, without preamble, he leaned in, capturing her lips with his. It was a gentle brush at first, both hesitant and yearning, before deepening into a kiss that was at once electrifying and grounding. Her senses exploded, the taste of night-blooming tulips combined with the intoxicating warmth of him. Every lingering fear, every doubt faded as passion surged. She lost herself in the embrace, every barrier dissolving beneath the weight of his conviction, his sweetness coursing through her like a dream she had long thought impossible. As they pulled back slightly, breaths mingling only inches apart, he whispered, "You're not as trapped as you think." In the soft glow of twilight, under the unfolding tapestry of stars, the garden bore witness to their awakening, the night embracing their newfound promise, holding secrets unspoken, yet cherished in silence. Scene 18, Manipulation Unveiled. An ornate chandelier swayed lightly, casting flickers of light that danced across the mahogany walls of the drawing room. Cleo Seke stood before the large bay window, sunlight pooling around her as she traced patterns in the dust-filtered beams with her fingers. Her thoughts raged beneath the surface, a tempest of reflection on the men she had maneuvered, enthralling and ensnaring them with a practiced ease that now felt hollow. Each moment of connectedness had only deepened her isolation. The silence of the room enveloped her like a heavy blanket, thick with anticipation. Behind her, the door creaked open, and her friends Laura and Alina slipped into the room, their laughter breaking like sunlight into the darkness of her thoughts. "Cleo, you've got to hear what happened at the gala last night," Laura exclaimed, her excitement barely contained. She tossed her hat onto the plush chair and flounced toward Cleo. "You won't believe how Jonathan was practically begging for a dance with you. One look, and he was a goner." Cleo's jaw clenched subtly, frustration rising as she tossed her head back for a quick laugh, masking her discomfort. "Oh, please. Jonathan can hardly remember my name in a crowd, let alone manage to control a dance card." Elena chimed in, her gaze flickering with mischief. "Maybe you should let him believe he has a chance. All it takes is a little manipulation, darling. You've done it before." "Manipulation? You make it sound so sordid," Cleo countered, her voice cutting like glass, holding on to the pretense of indifference while the truth wove a tight-laced tension in her chest. Laura smirked, leaning closer. "What's wrong with using your charm? You can't seem too eager, or they run for the hills. Men like a chase, remember?" Cleo turned slightly, her eyes narrowing at the sunlight now draping the room. Is that what I am now, Laura? A game to be played? You're both talking like I'm some sort of prize to win. Not a prize, a reward. Elena fired back, her tone buoyant. The laughter faded momentarily as Cleo shifted her body language. The slight drop of her shoulders depicted resignation, yet her stance remained strong. I am not the one who is lost on how to love, Cleo declared, almost too fiercely. I'm simply... She paused, struggling for words that would cloak her true feelings. Tired of the same old charades. Has the engagement turned you cynical? Laura said with far too much concern, her brow pinching together as the atmosphere shifted. Cleo bit her lip, staring out as if the horizon held the answers she sought. I had hopes for love once, you know. I thought it would be different. But the moment was shattered as the ground outside rumbled with the sound of approaching carriages, an echo of turbulent shadows from the underworld she was embroiled in. Alarm etched itself in every line of Cleo's face as the distant roar transformed into scattered whispers of unseen chaos. What was that? Elena's voice faltered, her bravado crumbling. Cleo moved to the door, opening it just enough to peer outside. It's not just carriages. Her heart lurched as she recognized the unmistakable sound of urgency, a riotous brawl unfolding in the street, the metallic ring of chaos dancing in her ears. Stay here, Cleo ordered, determination igniting her words. But they were already at her heels, curiosity swirling with dread. As she stepped out, the sky darkened with mounting tension. Figures flashed in the distance, and she could hear the distant sounds of men shouting. She spotted Malik, tall and striking in the midst of the fray, his movements fluid, commanding, like a dancer navigating through a storm. What are you doing here? Cleo shouted, her voice barely audible over the uproar. I'm making sure you're safe. Malik replied, his voice steady, fierce. Her heart quickened, not only with fear, but with a flicker of something deeper, something that felt perilously close to vulnerability. She glanced at the chaos around them, the visceral energy to her, chaos that mirrored the tumult in her heart from the manipulations she'd wielded in the past. You can't just fight everyone's battles for them, Malik. I'm not taking that chance with you. His gaze bore into hers, a challenge igniting in the heavy air, stripped of manipulation. Cleo felt the tension flare between them, each of their truths laid bare in the connection, igniting like a wildfire. Two souls on a precipice of realization, lines of control and chaos winding them tightly together amidst the struggle around them. In that moment, crystallized by the velvet of desperation, their worlds collided, not as pawns in a game of manipulation, but as forces entwined in the raw emotions beneath. Then stop being my protector and fight beside me. Cleo's voice trembled, standing resolute in the blood-tinged air. The distance between them narrowed, both transformed, the complexity of love woven into a tapestry of unrest. Cleo, Malik whispered, his dark eyes holding a promise, I will always save you. And she was not sure who held the greater power. But the tension crackled in the air. They were both about to change, far beyond mere manipulation. Scene 19, Fragile Trust. A heavy mist hung low over the cobbled streets of Mayfair, swirling through the sharply defined lines of the elegant townhouses. The air was crisp, laced with the aroma of freshly baked bread and the faint sweetness of blooming jasmine that clung to the wrought iron balconies. Cleo Seke stood at the large window of her drawing room, her reflection warped by the pearly fog outside. She sighed, watching as shadows danced on the glass, lost in thought. Inside the room, the atmosphere was tense, an echo of the storm that brewed within her heart. She gathered the hem of her gown, the rich fabric whispering against her skin, a reminder of the tumultuous engagement she could no longer bear. Across the room, Malik Orpheus leaned against the mantelpiece, arms crossed, tension radiating from him like a crackling fire. His presence was soothed by the flickering candlelight, yet it was the unanchored look in his dark eyes that set her pulse racing. You really think I could keep something from you? Malik's voice held a blend of incredulity and frustration, cutting through the silence like a knife. Cleo, it's not my nature to conceal, especially from you. Cleo turned to him slowly, her emotions swirling in chaotic patterns. You know Whitmore is not just any man. He's a snake disguised in finery, and yet you presume I'm still oblivious. I can't be involved in whatever schemes he's orchestrating just to placate a man who couldn't give a damn about me." Her voice cracked, revealing the slight tremor behind her bravado. "Then why are you letting him dictate your life?" Malik stepped closer, heat radiating from him, and she could feel the urgency in his tone. "You're stronger than that, Cleo. Why can't you see it? Because every time I try to break away, it's as if the world closes in. You, of all people, should understand. You're—" She hesitated, a sudden vulnerability washing over her. "You're caught in your family's shadow, just as I am wrapped in this engagement's grip." In that moment, the wall between them seemed to crack. Malik's stern demeanor faltered, a ghost of sadness flickering across his features. "I know shadows well. I live in constant awareness of them," he whispered, his voice dropping to an intimate warmth. "But I refuse to let yours extinguish the light inside you." She stepped closer, a heartbeat away from his warmth, the tension thick enough to slice. Yet the sound of laughter in the next room broke the moment. A group of societal elites had gathered, the air punctuated by their careless chatter and clinking of glasses. Cleo's heart sank as jealousy twisted in her stomach. "See?" she said sharply, pulling back. "That's the world I live in, Malik. These parties, these people, they want power and charm, not a woman determined to carve her own path." Malik laughed softly, but there was no mirth in it. "You think I care what they want? Those fools would trample over each other if it meant gaining a slightly bigger piece of the pie." He moved closer still, trapping her gaze beneath the weight of his intensity. "I would stand and fight for you against them all if you'd let me." "Oh, and what would that accomplish?" She rolled her eyes, but the defensiveness in her voice was softening. "I can't be rescued. I need to find my footing alone. I can't live off your shadow or your kindness." His face darkened for a split second, but he nodded as if working through unspoken thoughts. "Fine, then let's do this together. This isn't about you relying on me. This is about trusting each other enough to step forward into the chaos. Please, Cleo." Cleo looked at him, seeing the mix of conviction and vulnerability in his expression. "What if I falter? What if I make the wrong choices again?" "I'll be there to catch you," he said earnestly, stepping fully into her space, their breaths mingling, charged with unspoken promises. "You're not alone anymore." The silence settled around them, laden with the weight of vulnerability. Cleo could barely breathe, the threat of laughter from the next room fading into the backdrop of what felt like a shared understanding. Suddenly, she reached out, her hand brushing against the warmth of his arm, and she felt the rush of an unnameable connection flaring between them. "Malik," she began softly, and he leaned closer, their foreheads touching softly as the world outside faded. In a world full of shadows and schemes, perhaps, just perhaps, trust could begin to carve a path forward. Scene 20, Cleo's resolve. The late afternoon sun poured through the tall windows of Cleo's ornate drawing room, casting warm pools of light onto the intricately woven Persian rug. Dust motes danced lazily in the golden beams, but the atmosphere was thick with an unspoken tension that settled heavily in Cleo's chest. She stared out at the manicured gardens, their vibrant colors a stark contrast to the tumult roiling inside her. Each frantic leaf rustling in the breeze seemed to whisper reminders of her questionable engagement, their whispers soft yet insistent. Cleo traced the delicate filigree of a nearby vase absent-mindedly, her mind darting like a moth around a flame flitting between memories of Malik's disarming wit and the oppressive weight of her fiancé's indifference. She set the vase down with a thud, a shadow of her conflict reflected in the crystal surface. Just then, the door creaked open, drawing her gaze. Malik entered, his tall figure cloaked in a casual grace that seemed to hush the very room. "Cleo," he said, his deep voice weaving through the silence, magnetically holding her attention. His dark eyes searched hers, but she held her breath, staving off the temptation to slip into the comfort of his presence. Malik lingered by the door, leaning against the frame with a casual poise that belied the tension etched into his features. "You look pensive. What's on your mind?" "Just life," Cleo replied, attempting a carefree smile that crumbled under the weight of truth. She gestured vaguely toward the window. "It's beautiful outside, isn't it?" He stepped into the room, closing the distance, yet the air between them buzzed like a taut string ready to snap. "It's beautiful. but not nearly as captivating as the person staring out at it. Cleo glanced up, startled by the intensity of his gaze. There were secrets held within his depths, shadows that made her heart race and her resolve falter. "You always know how to say the right thing," she said lightly, though her voice wobbled. "But I need to consider the right choice, not just the right words." Malik's expression hardened slightly, the sand shifting beneath them. "And what choice is that? Staying with someone who only sees you as an extension of himself?" The question hung between them, heavy with implications. Cleo felt a flicker of defensiveness igniting within her. "A choice based on tradition and expectation isn't easily set aside, Malik. Tradition doesn't spar with your happiness," Malik replied, his passion unfurling before her. "What about the life you dream of, Cleo? You deserve to feel fulfilled, not content." His words burrowed inside her, igniting a war between her heart and mind. Memories flashed, late nights spent confiding in Malik, the way he listened without judgment, the warmth that enveloped her when he drew near. But she quickly pushed it aside, unwilling to acknowledge the intimacy that thrummed in the space between them. "Fulfillment feels selfish when others depend on you," she countered, her voice trembling. "I can't just abandon everything." "Sometimes it's necessary to abandon a sinking ship." Malik's tone softened, and for a moment, the protective demeanor slipped, revealing the earnest man beneath. "You're drowning in someone else's expectations. Let me help you breathe again." Cleo met his gaze, an electric connection sparked, each heartbeat reverberating in the silence of the room. She felt an overwhelming desire to grasp the truth buried within her, a truth Malik seemed on the verge of unearthing. Yet fear held her in place, shackles forged from years of doubt and suffocating allegiance. "Why is this so hard?" she breathed. "Why do I feel like I'm teetering on the edge of a precipice?" "Because change is chaotic," Malik replied, stepping closer. Their proximity felt like a river rushing, carrying both uncertainty and promise. "But you have a choice. You can leap or you can stand still." Cleo swallowed hard, her heart racing against the backdrop of her scattered hopes and suffocating realities. "Maybe I'm tired of being afraid of the fall." "Then let me catch you," he whispered, the warmth of his voice wrapping around her like a cocoon. In that moment, Cleo knew the stakes were higher than mere social customs. Her life, her happiness, and perhaps the very essence of who she was stood at the brink. The undeniable connection surged, threading between them a promise that danger could not extinguish. A flicker of resolve ignited within her. "Then let's see what comes next." Scene 21, a reckless decision. The night air hummed with an electric tension, a stark contrast to the polished formality of the world Cleo Seke was accustomed to. Twirling lanterns flickered like restless spirits, casting playful shadows across cobblestone streets that almost felt sentient, alive with whispers of secrets. This underground gathering was an enigma wrapped in lace and intrigue, and as Cleo approached the hidden entrance, her heart raced in a way both thrilling and terrifying. Malik Orpheus stood beside her, his presence a steady anchor in a sea of uncertainty. Dressed in a tailored coat that enveloped his tall frame, he emanated a bold energy, an invitation to plunge into the unknown. As they neared the entrance, the low murmur of laughter and the clinking of glasses wrapped around them like a warm embrace, and her insides twisted with daring anticipation. Cleo's gaze lingered upon Malik's face, tracing the confident curve of his lips that seemed to dance with mischief. "Are you ready for this?" Malik's voice was low, a magnetic drawl that ignited a flicker of mischief in her chest. Without breaking her gaze, Cleo responded, "As ready as I'll ever be." The statement was buoyed by a rush of adrenaline, blending excitement with defiance. With an imperceptible nod, Malik pushed the door open, revealing a brick-lined cellar aglow with candlelight. Adorned in lush fabrics and vibrant colors, it was a world far removed from the stern confines of her engagement, where the laughter was free, uninhibited, and perhaps tinged with danger. The air was heavy with scents of spiced wine and perfumed bodies. It wrapped around her like an intoxicating cocktail, urging her deeper into the thrall of the night. Moving through the throng, Malik's arm brushed against hers, a fleeting thrill that made her skin tingle. He didn't just bring her into this realm, he made her feel the weight of every knowing glance and smirk from those around them. The edges of her world felt blurry, the lines she once held so dearly now rendered inconsequential. Cleo caught whispers of conversations, laughter that echoed like a flirtation with chaos. Each sound resonated in her chest, making her heart dance to a new rhythm, one that felt both rebellious and deliciously intoxicating. She glanced up at Malik, whose dark eyes held a mixture of admiration and protective concern. "Stay close," he said, a hint of command lacing his tone. His jaw clenched, the subtle tension giving away how much he worried about the implications of this daring evening. With a playful smile, Cleo replied, "Worry not. I know how to fend for myself." The fire in her voice didn't reach her eyes, though. There was a flicker of uncertainty there, a hint of the woman beneath layers of fierce independence and ambition. As they navigated deeper into the gathering, a flash of movement caught Cleo's eye. A couple fought nearby, words dripping with venom. A woman shrieked, "You think you can control me?" before the man retaliated with a harsh laugh. The tension escalated around them, where laughter sparkled with danger, and every altercation felt like potential fireworks ready to ignite. For a moment, her heart sank into the dark thrill of anticipation. "It's a wild place," Malik murmured, shifting closer. "The energy is intoxicating, but tread carefully. Not everyone here chooses their battles wisely." Cleo watched the shifting dynamics, the fervor of love, the sharpness of argument, as if she were witnessing her own relationship through a glass veil. There were situations brewing that mirrored the complications of her own life, each difficult and raw, laid bare amongst strangers. Then, amidst the chaos, their eyes met, and time froze. The laughter faded as Malik leaned closer, his voice a gentle caress.